Today, Josh Elliott spoke to RNC Chief Strategist and Communications Director Sean Spicer about what's next for the Republican Party.
Both Tuesday night and Wednesday morning were not how as I predicted they would be. But I think it's good that we're continuing to coalesce and understand that where the math is going to be. That being that Donald Trump will be the presumptive nominee. And the quicker that we as a party can get on with that unifying phase of what we need to go through to kind of heal some of the wounds that may have been caused to the primary season and get on to focusing on the general election, defeating Hillary Clinton, the better.
The RNC, Sean, called for the party to unify last night behind Donald Trump. But obviously, this is against the backdrop of what has been a contentious relationship between the committee and the candidate. He has called the system rigged. He has called it crooked. He has been willing, obviously, to make personal attacks outside the traditional political apparatus, if that's what we want to call social media these days, and really has broken seemingly most every rule. Nearly half, meanwhile, of Indiana's GOP voters said the campaign has divided the party. So what impact do you believe this has all had on the unity that you desire?
Well, I think we started this process with the 17 candidates. Most of them, I mean, we had a pretty amazing level of credentials and qualifications. Historical, if you want to look at it in terms of the number of folks that came through this process, and passions were high and tensions were high. People were really supportive of the individuals that they wanted to fight for. Even sometimes going on to a second candidate and saying after their first choice dropped out. So we need some time probably to heal a little bit and let some of those wounds mend. But we're going to do it. We understand that. As a party, the only way that we win is if we're unified and we grow. If we don't, we'll come up short and hand this to Hillary Clinton.
There is also a real question now just about how much establishment elders, if you will, within the GOP are willing to unify. One of those, Lindsey Graham, tweeted, in fact, last night, Donald Trump takes every demographic problem we had in 2012 and makes them worse. And the numbers tell a grim story. 61% unfavorability with young voters, 70% with female voters. It's almost 80% with Latino voters in speaking about Donald Trump. So how to undo an ugly reality here?
Well, we've been through a primary phase where the focus has been to go after individual candidates and to focus on primary voters. As we now enter that phase, and luckily our party will be able to start that phase a lot sooner than the Democratic Party. You saw Bernie Sanders chalking up another victory last night, continuing to keep Hillary Clinton on the ropes, definitely through California before she can lock this thing up. But our party's going to start that healing process and begin to focus on reaching out to communities that maybe weren't part of the primary focus. So we've got to do that sooner rather than later and continue to bring a message, especially to communities that we haven't done as well in the past.
There also seems to have been a referendum of sorts on GOP conservatism. Ted Cruz has 7 million plus pledged supporters, whose chosen candidate now, after blistering Donald Trump just a day ago, has left the race. So how to bring them to a Trump candidacy?
Well, again, I think part of this is to make sure that everyone understands that while they may have had a dog in the fight, that their candidate was their chosen person, that there's a bigger picture at hand. And Hillary Clinton, this isn't about just 4 years. It's not about time. It's not about, hey, we'll get it back in 4 years. There's a lot of appointments, a lot of judges, a lot of executive orders, a lot of bills that can get signed in 4 years that can change the trajectory of this country in a way that most conservatives should find very, very scary. And I think that's what's going to unite us, and understanding that there's a lot of things that we can agree on. While we might not have been in support of one particular candidate, that we've got to remember the big picture at hand. Now, just remember, I know that right now the talk is about our party, but look at what's going on the other side. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are going at it very, very hard. Sanders continues to drag her to the extreme left. And they're going to have a very big problem because Hillary has gone so far left that I don't think she's going to recognize herself when she gets out of this primary process.
Meanwhile, it was learned when Paul Manafort met with RNC officials in Florida that he had, and the audio file was leaked, that he had promised that what we'd seen of Donald Trump to that point had been something of an act and that the candidate would evolve on the stump. Is there a concern that even the idea that someone who is now the likely GOP nominee has been acting, has been just playing a role? What concern do you have about the viability of that candidate in November?
Well, I don't. I mean, I think what Paul said after the fact was that he was referring to the fact that, Donald Trump, when he's speaking to a group versus when he's in a small room, has a different persona. I think, frankly, most people have that. If they're at a big rally or speaking to a large auditorium, are much different than they would be if they're sitting one-on-one with an individual or in a small room. That aside, I think, look, Donald Trump's tapped into something that most politicians around this country are eager to figure out how to get the secret sauce, which is people in America are very upset with Washington. They're frustrated with their government. They don't think anyone's looking out for them. And clearly Donald Trump has tapped into that and understands the plight that they're feeling. And people are coming out and supporting him in droves.
Sean, he has had some wobbles when it came to certain policy positions. His foreign policy has been criticized at times, and he actually, in discussing what might be a VP pick of his today, he said it would likely be a political person who has relationships in Congress and can help him there on that front. What would the RNC like to see in that selection?
Well, I think we'd like to see somebody with strong conservative values. I think, as he mentioned, somebody with experience would be helpful to balance the ticket. But, this is up to him to decide. It's his ticket. Our job is to go out there and provide the resources necessary to win, continue to build on the ground game that we've had for the last several years out in the field, continue to build the data and the digital operation that help our both presidential nominee as well as the rest of the down ticket win in November. That's our job. So we're looking for somebody that continues to espouse good Republican values and can help us win.
RNC Communications Director Sean Spicer, we very much appreciate your time.
Thanks, Josh.